case you're here. I'm appreciative of you being here. And today I'm here to talk about the Batman. But I'm not going to be doing it alone. I think the best episodes I do tend to be with people. And I got another person here. It's Bruce. You don't go by Junior or anything, but you can just
You just call me Bruce. That's fine.
Yeah, just Bruce.
Yep.
Speaking of Bruce, what do you think about Bruce Willis and his aphasia? I'm sorry.
It's unfortunate, especially because it's been a while since he's done anything I really care for. And I wish he had kind of ended his career on a high note. Like, if he had done Unbreakable last, and that was the thing we remembered him for.
Yeah.
Just to throw a movie out there, I can't... What's something he's done after The Unbreakable?
Oh gosh. Well, he did that one, 2000, so...
Oh, I have something. Moonrise Kingdom.
Oh, yeah. The Wes Anderson movie. Yeah.
That's his last high note for me, I think.
I would say, around that time, too, Looper, maybe.
Looper was very good.
Yeah. If you would say, and then, afterward, it started to become the straight-to-DVD bin.
Yeah, Looper is a good shout. And I wonder if now that we know what was going on or is going on, if that was kind of played a factor into the...
I think everybody's wondered it. Because I know myself, I'm not going to say that I was ever above the... shitting on Bruce Willis making bad movies thing. I mean, it was fair game.
Yeah.
He made some trash, and, paying the bills or whatever, but I think a lot of people sort of questioned or just were like, he gave up. He's just on cruise control. He doesn't care anymore. But, yeah, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, that was, a total random, that was, the most ridiculous plug for, hey, let's talk about Bruce Willis and his mental decline.
Yeah.
But no, we're here to talk about the Batman. And I know you said that you saw this last week.
Yep.
I want to say
HBO Max.
I was going to ask theater streaming. What did you see it on?
I waited for it for streaming just because, I'll be honest, we've just gotten too many of these in short succession, and I'm burnt out on DC Marvel universes.
Did you ever, watch? I guess how into the comic book movies have you been? The MCU,
I think there was
DCU, all that.
So, just to give away my age a little bit, I'm 38. So, I grew up in the 90s where we didn't get very many of these. So, every time something came out, it was like an event. And then the 2000s started rolling around when we got the Iron Man. And then it was just nonstop since then. And we were excited for a while because this was what we've been waiting on, what we grew up to aspire to in the film universe. And then now it's just we're never going to get away from this. So now it's I kind of wait it out and see what the census is. Is this one worth checking out or not? I skipped the Ben Affleck ones altogether because I don't like Zack Snyder.
Okay.
So this is my first pick back up since Nolan.
Really?
Yep.
Now you haven't watched any other superhero thing?
Not DC.
Not DC specific.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm trying to think. If you count the Joaquin Phoenix Joker as DC, I saw that of course, but that's its own thing.
Yeah.
But,
well, this kind of is too, right?
Yeah, it's not following anything with Aquaman or Wonder Woman, all that stuff. It's definitely, I think, in its own universe, I guess. But
I feel like this is, if Joker is the taxi driver, this is Zodiac and Seven.
I saw a lot of comparisons to that.
Yeah.
And definitely fair enough, especially because Paul Dano's Riddler, he's wearing the duct tape getup. Very, very similar to those drawings that the surviving people of the Zodiac Killer drew. So yeah, that makes sense. But real quick, I guess I should definitely throw this in too. How do I know you? I always like to give a little bit of backing, just I just got this guy pulled off the street. But yeah.
Through friends of friends?
That's what I said to because I was telling someone that I was having a guy that I haven't had on the podcast before. They're like, how do you know? I'm like, well, he's only knows Brazilians. Through a Brazilian, there's another Brazilian. he's
7 degrees of Kevin Brazilian.
Yeah. But you're a film student too.
Yeah, at University of Iowa.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and how long have you been doing that?
A year and a half. I transferred in from another school, University of Minnesota.
Okay.
When I figured out what I wanted to be when I grow up.
And when did that happen?
Well, I retired from the Air Force last year, and then I kind of had to quickly figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I wanted to be a storyteller. I knew that. And then I took my first screenwriting class at University of Minnesota. Loved it. I found it's not easy. But I found it to be, I don't know, more conducive to my talents as a writer versus writing novels. And I picked it up right away. And then I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And it started there, just with the screenwriting thing. And then I picked up a camera at University of Iowa, and I was like, oh, I like this. And then I went to editing at University of Iowa, and I was like, oh, I like this even more.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of built over time.
So I probably will ask you more film-specific questions, I feel like, on this episode in particular, because it's not every day that I am talking to someone that at least has an actual serious interest in the world of film. So, don't be surprised if I start asking you some questions about that.
100%.
One thing I do want to ask, because you talked about editing, and I don't know a ton of people that I would say exactly love editing.
Oh, I love
process
it.
Of it.
It's my favorite part of it.
Tell me why.
Why? Because that is the essence of film. Like, without editing, you're just shooting. Mm-hmm. Editing is film. Editing is cinema. Like, that is the birth of cinema, is to take shots and create a montage out of them, like the Soviets did in the turn of the century. And then that's where the birth of cinema came from. And it's how we tell stories. Like, as much as you put into a film, as important is what you leave out. So making cuts and deciding when to go from this shot to that shot, that is the essence of cinema.
Yeah, I mean, that's super well said. To me, like, maybe the process of doing it might not appeal to everybody, but like, that's where, as you said, you're shaping the story.
Yep.
Like, it's a delicate ballet, almost, if you will, of all the different intricate shots that you have to weave together to tell a cohesive story that actually makes sense and isn't jarring and like appeals on all these different levels. So yeah, I very much actually admire people that understand the process of editing. So it's nice to hear that you're not like intimidated by it and you don't obviously mind doing it.
No, I love it.
Do you do it all yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, preferably. I actually get very annoyed when people try to give me input. When I'm trying to feel my way through something, and then someone's over your shoulder telling you, like, don't do that. Or, do that. Like, I'm allowed to make mistakes, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, as soon as I walk away from the computer, it doesn't put itself out into the ether. Like, I'm allowed to make a mistake, not see the mistake, and then come back the next day, watch the thing from beginning to end, and then go, oh shit, I should have did something different there, and then go back into the editing room.
Yep. So, no, that makes sense. So we should probably talk about the Batman. Got to get into that because I know you said that you had some opinions on it where you're like, I don't really like it that much, or you had some negative thought. I know about it. Which I will just get this out of the way right now. Did I love the movie? No. I thought it was better than like Batman v Superman and like Justice League. Like it's been like the better Batman since I don't want to say Dark Knight because there's all those Dark Knight comparisons and like it's not, to me it's not that, but it's definitely a good movie, but it's not without its problems. So I would say that. Yeah,
I think I'm gonna spend a lot of our time pointing out a lot of things I don't like, but I will say is it 3 hours or 3.5?
I have it right here. Does it actually say the runtime of it here somewhere? 2 hours and 56 minutes.
Yeah, for 2 hours and 56 minutes, I will say, while I was watching it, even though I was thinking of better films it was aping, I still wasn't checking my watch. That's a good sign. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. The problem is when I start getting away from the film and thinking about it more and more, I see more problems.
I had that reaction, if we're sticking with just Batman movies, that was my reaction with Dark Knight Rises. is that I like upon first viewing. I mean, there was so much hype leading into that movie with like Heath Ledger had passed. They didn't know what they were gonna do. There was a lot kind of going around it, and I just know when I saw it, I was like, oh, I enjoyed some of the filmmaking, and then you started to like. As you said, you sit back, you remove yourself, and you're like, okay, wait a minute. I don't like the bridge blowing up thing. Like, that's stupid. Like, Bane, like, why is he doing that? You start to notice things, and that's a problem.
Yeah, like, I think with any of these movies, especially DC Marvel movies, it's all about the spectacle. So, like, when you're going through the process of just being immersed into the spectacle, you're not necessarily parsing it out from one scene to the next. It's like, oh, that's an interesting set piece. I like the way they put the camera there. I like the way that looks or that's lit. And like, it's all interesting as pieces of a puzzle. But when you put the puzzle together as one thing, it starts to kind of fall apart.
Yep. No, that makes 100% sense. So we're going to get right into the movie right now. We're going to talk some specifics with it. I will read the synopsis just in case somebody doesn't know who Batman is or has not heard of this movie because it's pretty much everywhere. But Batman, I'm not gonna read this word for word on here. Batman, he's doing his Batman thing. He's been that for about 2 years. That's what they say anyway. I don't think they really make that super clear in the movie, but he's early into being Batman. And Gotham is a shithole. He's not happy about it, and he's like, I'm gonna clean it up, do stuff. He's very dark, brooding, wears eyeliner throughout the entire time. Catwoman shows up eventually. There's a whole convoluted plot about the relationship between her and Carmine Falcone, however you say that. Maked up Colin Farrell is there as the Penguin, and Riddler, in the meanwhile, is just screwing with Batman and leaving riddles everywhere, and he's got to solve it. So that's a general shit synopsis that I just came up with, but... Anyway.
Nailed it.
So, first thing I wanted to address just formally is your take just on Batman, previous Batman movies. Do you care about Batman? Are you like a deep comic book fan? Is this just kind of another
definitely
Batman
not a comic?
To you?
Yeah, definitely not a comic fan. I could care less about... Like, this is one of these, like, time-old, like, arguments, right? Like, okay, Stephen King wrote The Shining. The Shining, the book exists. We already have that. So when my favorite filmmaker of all time, Kubrick, decides to make The Shining and he goes his own way with it, like, for me, those two things can exist and they can both be good as separate things. I don't need a movie to give me what the book gave me. Some people don't feel that way.
Right.
As a person that doesn't read the comic books, I obviously wouldn't care like what the movie has given me as long as it's a new take on the character. Otherwise, what are we doing here? So I will say that about this Batman. I felt like it was a fresh take on the character, and it was interesting. It's an interesting one in paper.
Yeah, I think what I was hoping for, at least going in, is that there was at least rumblings, or you could kind of figure it out from watching the trailer, that they were trying to go for the more neo-noir detective Batman. At least I think that's what the pitch was, to make it different from, because if you could argue that, Christopher Nolan's was already dark and gritty. We've seen dark and gritty, but we haven't really seen Batman do much detecting, even though they reference him being a great detective throughout several of the previous movies.
That's it.
So I enjoyed like seeing him have to figure out things a little bit more, as opposed to him just beating the shit out of people because he's afraid of bats. Like, whatever. But I could see the Zodiac comparisons as well. That was definitely there. Like, every filmmaker borrows influences from somebody. I liked it. Overall, I will say, and this is a lot coming from me because I advocate constantly that a movie can be as long as it wants to be, as long as it's justified and it's good. It felt a little long. That's one of my hang-ups on it, is that there were parts where I was like, okay, like some of these shots are lingering for, in my opinion, just the sake of like, that's cool looking.
The Brood.
Yeah. And it didn't really like always enhance the story for me when those, to me, kind of drag out moments happen, but I overall still appreciated them trying to take it in a different direction. I thought all the acting was still pretty solid across the board. Colin Farrell, I'm always impressed when people like can, just get plastered in makeup and disappear into something. I enjoyed seeing that.
I thought he was funny.
He did. He brought more humor to the role than I thought he was going to.
He was the only humor part.
Yeah, everybody else was very serious. They tried to like have there be like a couple moments, I think, here and there, where Batman's like, "Oh, you have cats," or they do something like that. But I don't really know if that was trying to be intentionally funny or not.
No, I thought he brought humor to a movie that was predominantly humorless.
Yeah, no, and it's very serious.
Yeah.
That was one thing I don't think I'm skipping ahead on, but I wanted to get your take on this because Batman, Bruce Wayne, both the people, he's definitely mostly Batman in the movie. There isn't much of the typical flamboyant, billionaire that has all the women and is just like a jackass, and then he's a crime fighter. He seems just like almost like Batman when he is being Bruce Wayne. I was wondering if you had thoughts on that, or like what your interpretation of when he was not wearing the cape was.
Actually, I thought from a writing perspective that was smart, because what we normally get is he's Hugh Hefner when he's not Batman.
Right.
And the problem with that is that you're always in the limelight if you're that person, and everyone recognizes you immediately. Not necessarily in a Batman suit, but they recognize this part of your face. Like, you know what I mean? Like, one of the things I liked about this one is that he was a recluse. No one sees him very often. It's brought up many times when he is not in the Batman suit and he comes out of hiding. People are like, "Oh, shit, what's up?
Yeah.
It's been a while." Like, you know what I mean? So, like, that part, I did like that. Like, I did like that he's a recluse that's been in hiding and no one really knows what he looks like or, like, how he behaves anymore. And it's like, oh, right, we haven't seen you in a while. And they mention him anytime Falcone sees him, he calls him kid, right?
Yeah.
So it's been a while, like, that he's been out and about. And it makes sense that people wouldn't recognize him in the Batman suit.
That's true. That's a very good point. And I also thought that because of them making a point, at least at one point, that he's in year 2 of being Batman, that he hasn't really quite developed that Bruce Wayne persona, the Hugh Hefner thing you're talking about, where he's like really like, I'm polar opposite of that guy in the cape. Like,
I hope they stick to that, actually, honestly.
No, I thought that was smart. And I think there was one like critic that I was like listening to, and just for the record, I don't look at any critical reviews or anything before I see a movie because I want to form my own opinion.
Right.
But one critic I think really nailed it on the head that at least in this iteration, this time frame of him being Batman, is that he was almost like addicted to being Batman. That like him even being somebody else outside of the cape and cowl was like almost not even a reality for him. He's just like obsessed with darkness and beating the shit out of people.
Yeah, and it's a problem with him being who he is and the name, right? The family name. Like, Alfred brings it up many times, like, hey, we have people coming to our house. Can you fucking clean this shit up? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I like that part of it. And in addition to that, like, I felt it made more sense that him and Catwoman immediately like hit it off physically. Like, there's some chemistry there because for someone that doesn't get out much, the one girl that gives him a little bit of attention, he's like, oh, I'm into her. Like, you know, that kind of makes sense to me as well.
Real quick, and we'll talk about the cast and everything like that. But since you had mentioned Alfred, I think.
Right. Yep.
Andy Serkis as Alfred. That was one thing I enjoyed is he doesn't have a lot of screen time necessarily, but I did enjoy that we didn't get the old man, like, I've been your family waiter for like 50 years and okay, Master Wayne, like you kind of felt he had some energy, like, and he had some experience, because I believe in the comics anyway that Alfred actually came from like British military or something. I'm not an expert on that, but that's what I've heard.
I can't speak on that.
I like Andy Serkis.
I love Andy Serkis. I do wish he would have been used a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that goes to another problem I have with the film being overstuffed. Like, I really wish it had focused on like one, maybe two villains tops, and then we could have got more like, let's build this relationship between him and Alfred more. Let's build this relationship between him and Catwoman more. Like, if you're gonna have her there, have it be more than what it was, but there was just so much going on
Yeah.
and so many threads he had to keep in the air. Like, I think that's where the movie suffers a little bit.
Yeah. And it's excellent that you brought that up because it's coming.
Yeah.
we're definitely going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So I want to ask just, we talked about how it's a different take on Batman. We've talked about some aspects of just the casting and everything. But Matt Reeves, as a filmmaker, like, what did you think of just his direction overall behind the Batman?
Okay. So this is complicated. And this is where, as much as I didn't love this film, what I am excited about, man, I guess we're going to just go there, right?
We're going.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
so,
happening.
So my primary issue with this movie is that it's aping better movies. And
say that again, aping?
Aping
What
better
does that- what
movies.
does that mean?
It's a collage of better films, like I've already mentioned it, but Zodiac, basically just David Fincher films.
Right.
David Fincher's aesthetic, David Fincher's like villainry, like when he has villains in his films, like Riddler is clearly the Zodiac. I want to see Matt Reeves step out on his own and prove that he is an auteur and not just a, like studio director, like hire. Because one of his first films was remaking Let the Right One In.
Yep.
Then he remade the Planet of the Apes films. Now he's picking up the Batman franchise, which we know has been done before. So now my question for him is, okay, you've done the Fincher thing. Now we have confirmation that there is going to be another Batman movie.
No surprise.
Yeah. None at all. Especially the prison scene in Arkham. Like, we kind of got set up for a second film there. But he is coming back, Matt Reeves, to do the second one. I want to see him do what he did with the Planet of the Apes, because I thought the second and third of those films were the best ones. And
Agreed.
So I want to see him like bring your own vision. Don't do something that's been done before or ape a better director, which right now David Fincher is a much better director than Matt Reeves. So dude, step out, do your own thing, like be yourself, bring your own idiosyncrasies. Is that the word?
It might be. I think so.
Idiosyncrasies. Anyway, bring your own style and flair to it. And I think he did a little bit, but like, don't force me into position of thinking about other movies when I'm watching your movie, which removes me from the world. So.
No, you're good. I'm so glad that you brought this up, and you make a really good point too, because you're talking about the filmography of Matt Reeves, and you do make a good point that he's either remade something, stepping into an existing IP, he's doing these sorts of things. So that is something I hadn't really quite thought about from that angle. But to that point, I do wonder if a director, any director, not just Matt Reeves, I wonder if because they're stepping into a property that is so well known, they either feel handcuffed or the studio is like, like there's certain things. I'm not saying that as like an excuse for him, but I do just wonder, how much a director feels comfortable with doing some drastic type of change. And a case in point thing, I guess I would say, not saying this might be the greatest example, but when Rian Johnson did that Last Jedi thing, now you could argue he made a hell of a lot of changes. For better or worse, that's
for better.
That's for up for debate. But I do just wonder if, whether it's a novice director, an experienced one, when they step into a big property like the Batman, what does that do for them trying to be original? I don't know. And like I said, Matt Reeves, he hasn't really like stepped out, as you said, and done it. So,
coming off the back end of the pandemic, the Batman has proved, and not just the Batman, Spider-Man No Way Home did it as well, but we've proved we can get asses in seats again. So, okay, he did it. Like, now, if he was handcuffed, and I don't know to what extent he was, I don't think too much, because like him pitching, I'm gonna do emo Batman, that's a bold take, like, you know what I mean? I'm surprised they let him go there.
Yeah.
But then again, maybe not. maybe it was just always going to this point. Robert Pattinson isn't exactly like, you know, a no name. Like, he's known commodity. I think when he was announced, everyone was like, Robert Pattinson? And really? The Lighthouse guy?
Well,
Yeah.
I heard people when they said that
The Twilight guy.
The Twilight guy. But
that just shows my bias.
but that's the mainstream audience.
Yeah.
Which that's something we'll definitely get into. But go back to what you were saying.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, we don't know to what extent he was handcuffed. I'm sure he was to some extent.
I feel like you have to be. When
You
there's
have
so
to
much
be.
money on the table.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would like to. It would be my dream that every director could just be uninhibited to do what they do.
I will say this. I might be going off the rails here, but one thing that I fucking love about this film is that they chose to film on site in Glasgow and Edinburgh, and I think it gives Gotham a new feel that we've needed. It wasn't Chicago.
It wasn't Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it wasn't Pittsburgh. It wasn't Manhattan. It was, of course, if you're from Scotland, that's completely recognizable ground to you. But as an American film viewer, like, that was new for me. Like, it felt new. It felt lived in.
Mm-hmm.
It felt grimy. Like, I'm assuming the weather in Scotland is kind of very... I've only been to Cambridge, England. I haven't been to Scotland.
Yeah.
But it is very, like, kind of misty, like, all the time.
Yeah.
Like this... I don't know, almost like Seattle weather.
I'll have to ask my little brother. He's there right now.
Oh,
he's
interesting.
I think he's getting back at like the 30th or something like that. So I will confirm with him whatever the weather's like.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually know where they filmed it at.
Yeah, that's where they filmed it, and
Okay.
Liverpool as well, which is near and dear to my heart. But
That's almost another show.
yeah, that is another show. But no, like it. I hope they keep doing that. Like, that is such bold. Maybe not bold, but it's new. It's fresh.
Yeah.
Like, and it gave it a different feel. And like when we do the wide shots in this film, as dirty as it looks, is almost also as beautiful as it is. Like, it was just very new. It wasn't the Burton thing, which is huge sets,
Yeah.
which I love.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the Nolan thing. It was its own thing. As far as Gotham looked very different than it has ever looked before, in my opinion.
No, I would agree with you on that. And I think every filmmaker that steps into such a large property with such deep lore as Batman goes, there's always going to be the challenge of, well, how do I make it my own, but then still please the huge demographic of people that have been supporting the comic for 70 plus years or however long the character's been around. The shooting location thing's interesting though, for sure. I'm someone when it comes to filmmaking that if you can do something practically, I'm always going to try to push for that.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of technology that comes around with like blue screens, and I mean it's much better than it used to be. And Marvel and some of these bigger budget films tend to prove that point. But as you said, the world of Gotham is as much a character in the movie as everything else. So if you can find a way to differentiate it from the different worlds that have been put there, I think that's only for the benefit of the people going to see the movie.
And I'm going to talk out of my ass for 1 second, but I'm assuming
Please, let it fly.
I'm assuming the word Gotham, the city Gotham, that naming convention created by the comics, I'm assuming,
Probably.
is probably stemming from the word Gothic, which we've always like come to know Gotham for. And I felt like Edinburgh, like, they nailed it. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, way more than Chicago.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because we live near Chicago that I'm like, oh, that's Chicago. Like, I know what street that's on. I get my best burger from there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was otherworldly in some way.
I think that, and I think that's good. You want a comic book movie to have some distance from reality to an extent.
Yeah.
I would say anyway. Nolan, I think his approach was to go very simple in the world aesthetic, like not make it really be anything other than like this could be something that you could see, and it just so happens Batman's rolling across the road with his tumbler.
Yeah.
No, I think it helps serve the story that they took the time to make the world feel lived in and dirty and grimy, like a shithole hellish version.
I'm
of
not
Taxi
calling
Driver.
Edinburgh and Glasgow a shithole.
Yeah, no, I want to make that clear. Yeah, sorry.
No,
Not-
it is
not bad.
beautiful. Like, it's both beautiful and they make it look ugly at the same time.
That's true.
So
That's
it's
much
not that
better.
the city is gorgeous, I'm sure, but like they found a way to make it feel both at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, especially the ending shot, but we're not going to get there yet.
No. Now, I want to go back to something that you had touched on for a minute. You talked about the difficulty in balancing several characters, right? Now, one thing I admit, I was a little, like, apprehensive, to say the least, when I saw, okay, you got Riddler, we got Catwoman, we got Batman, we got Alfred, we got the Penguin. There's a lot of characters.
Yeah.
Not even including the Carmine Falcone guy and everything, and the, just everything else. I'm always curious just how, like, where's the line, I guess, between, like, including too many characters and making people give a shit all the same. I figure you could speak to this probably better than I can, because I know for myself, I mean, I love ensemble movies, but ultimately if I don't care, like, really care for the character, then I'll just see famous faces. And
Well, that is kind of what we did. Unfortunately, like, but I mean, granted, Penguin is in Colin Farrell's in fat suit, so he actually wasn't very recognizable in that suit.
No.
So I think the issue is that we don't get arcs from all our villains. And I think you can argue we don't get any arcs from them, like, because they're just like, the Penguin is literally a punchline in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he's used for comic effect. Like, and I'm assuming they're building to something for the next film, maybe.
And he has his own HBO series coming too, I've heard.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He does.
Okay, so now it makes sense to me.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what that was. Okay.
Yeah.
So we didn't need it. Like, honestly, I'm not even sure we needed the Riddler stuff. I felt like if you're going to do if this is the initiation of this Batman,
Yeah.
thank God we didn't get the parents getting killed thing.
It's been done.
Yeah.
We know.
But if they had just stuck to Catwoman and him fighting Falcone, and then maybe at the end they go their separate ways, and then she's a villain later, like, that would have worked for me. Maybe it would have worked better. Like,
So-
we would have had a more focused film.
Did you feel then that with the amount of villains and just characters overall that it was, like, overstuffed and characters were not having fully shaped arcs?
Oh, 100%. Like, we get a pretty unimaginative and uninventive car chase.
The one with the Penguin?
Yeah, I
Okay.
did not like that. That's me personally. Especially if you compare it to a car chase like that we got in The Dark Knight. Like,
Yeah.
not even close.
It's hard to top that.
Yeah, not even close. So, like, that, like, you could just take all that stuff out. Like, honestly, you can, like, remove Riddler from this movie not Riddler, sorry. You can remove Penguin from this movie completely and have the same film, really. Like, what are you losing? Because he's kind of like an associate of Falcone, right?
Yeah, he's not really his fully Penguin
Yeah.
guy.
Which,
He's just kind of a thug. Works for him.
are we in spoilers?
Yeah, we can spoil her.
All right.
Yeah, it's been out for long enough. You've
He-
seen it.
We kill Falcone, right?
Yep.
So I guess that moves the chess piece out of the way for the Penguin to take over the...
Yeah, they had that, like, shot where he's, like, staring at the city going, like, I can't believe I'm gonna, make this thing mine. kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could have saved that for another film, man.
Yeah, I can certainly say there's a couple things that I would definitely agree with you there. The Penguin stuff, like you said, he's more there to liven things up a little bit. He has, like, that part where he's like, you don't know Spanish? Like, I can translate for you. Like,
Aren't you supposed to be a great detective?
yeah,
Or something.
so it's like they have bits like that.
It's
And it's
funny.
like, yeah, it's
It's
fun.
funny.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's good. But then, you have the Riddler, Catwoman, the Falcone guy. Yeah, I don't know. I do tend to lean towards, like, if you can put more development into a character as opposed to having too many, quantity over quality. That's just personally how I tend to look. But I would also then, I could bring up, like, Spider-Man No Way Home. I finally got to see it. Finally, I own the 4K right back there. And I thought for like that movie, I'm like, hey, like they actually did a pretty solid job of balancing out this many villains and not having to be like a Spider-Man 3 shit show where it's just a big mess.
A great writer can do it.
Yeah,
I don't think they nailed it here.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say so. I mean, part of it adds to the long runtime too, because it's just like like I said, I go back to the quality over quantity thing. It's like give me one or two, but like I don't need 3, 4, 5. I mean, give them like a spin-off series if you want to do that.
Or at least
whatever.
like every time they step on screen, like, okay, if they're a villain or an eventual villain, like I need to be like, oh, every time this dude shows up, I am shitting my pants. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and with Penguin, like that was not the case whatsoever.
No.
And to be frank with you, like once Paul Dano as Riddler starts talking and yelling and crying, like it did not work for me.
Yeah, I will say this too, and I promise I'm not just saying things to agree with you. Like, I'm giving you my honest opinion. Yeah, Paul Dano, I really like him as an actor.
I do too.
He's done some great movies. Like probably my 2 favorite movies. Well, 3 favorite movies with him. We got There Will Be Blood.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Yep.
Love and Mercy.
Yep.
Brian Wilson biopic movie's great, and I do love him for doing Swiss Army Man. That's another one.
Don't love that movie, but no, I feel you.
Appreciate
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah.
But yeah, I think for this, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I think for this, like I see him and it's like I felt like he was like trying to either emulate other things or he was trying to harken back to his kind of psychotic religious role in There Will Be Blood. I don't know. I like him a lot, but I didn't just fully get super creeped out as I should have been.
Well, no, like, okay, when we open the film, we get that voyeuristic shot of him looking into the other apartment
I was
where...
going to ask you about the opening shot. I wanted to get your opinion on that, just strictly as someone that has an interest in film. I thought it was cool how they just linger on him. It's like... just like, it really built
that
the mood.
all worked for me. Like, the fact that guy running for mayor, or was the mayor...
Yeah.
Another plot there we didn't need, but fine. The whole mayoral race, like that just can go. But that guy at the very beginning of the film playing with his son, and you're like, is this gonna be him shooting someone from across the street and getting the kid? Like, there's so much tension in that moment, and we don't know where it's going.
Not to mention, you have the Ave Maria, like
the
opera music going in the background,
which is a motif
too.
I like throughout the film, by the way.
Yes.
Actually, the score throughout this film is brilliant. I loved it.
Michael Giacchino's a really, really great composer.
Yeah. Other than the Nirvana thing, which worked for me once, but they did it one too many times.
I'll be honest. I'm not a big. I don't really know much. I know Smells Like Teen Spirit. Jesus, you're wearing a Nirvana shirt, so okay, you know more about it.
Yeah.
I did not. I had not heard that song before this movie.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, did not. I liked it.
That song is interesting because of the way it was recorded. It was just Kurt Cobain grabbing an acoustic guitar and said, "I have a thought in my head and I want to get it out." And him and the sound design guy like just sat in a booth and he let him go to town. But anyway, that's a topic for another day.
It's all right.
So, yeah. The whole tension at the beginning and the way he murks the mayor in running, whatever the case be, like, I loved all of that. Like, the first 10 minutes of this film, I was like, oh shit, here we go. Like, I was in.
Yeah.
And then it did too much. It tried to do too much.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Bruce, I come to you. Hi. Matt Reeves is fired. Like, it's you.
Uh-huh.
Like, you're gonna make this movie.
Uh-huh.
I'm just curious, like, what would your approach be? I'm not gonna say for like the Batman. It's like a big loaded question. You can't possibly answer that in like a minute. But if you're gonna like do something that's focused on, a few characters as opposed to like a ton, I mean, like, what do you think you would do? I guess to make things be really what's the word I'm looking for? Well, I guess just more meaningful, I guess, and not just bloated for bloated's sake. I don't know how else to say it.
I think because... Okay, I have two lines of thought here.
Yeah.
One is, what I would like DC ultimately to do is to make a Batman series. Stop making films. Do a Batman series that has the same budget that Game of Thrones had. And like every episode, and we don't need a bunch of episodes. We're talking like 8 episodes a season. Every episode is like the White Walkers coming. Like that level of tension and that level of gravitas.
Yeah.
Like, do that. We haven't done that yet. Like, just do that. Stop making films. Like, everyone's going to buy HBO Max just to see that. Like, so that's one line of it. Now, if we're going to keep cranking out movies, what I would like to see, and because we already know where this is going, because the way they ended the film with that Joker tag, which I didn't love, but anyway.
Did you watch the deleted scene?
I did not.
Okay, well, continue.
I think if we're going to get a Joker film, what I would love to do is to make an Alfred Hitchcock level horror movie that is not necessarily rated R, but that ratchets up the tension from scene to scene so much that it's borderline not okay for 5-year-olds to watch. Like, and I want Batman as a true crime detective, because that's another problem I had in this movie. I didn't think that the puzzles that Riddler set up were that fucking difficult to solve.
Oh, this is an interesting question. So, when you're watching a movie like the Batman, and you know there's riddles in it that he's trying to solve, it's going throughout the movie. As an audience member, when you're watching that, are you actively trying to solve it with him, or are you more focused on just the story?
No, I'm just focused. I'm letting it wash over me, especially the first time I watch it. Now, what the problem I have with this movie in one of the puzzles was a rat with wings, and I did not understand why he couldn't figure that one out. Like, dude, get it together. But like, but he thought it was the penguin. Anyway.
Why did he think it was the penguin?
I don't know.
I've only seen the movie once, so I'm like, I don't know.
Dude, look in a mirror. Anyway. Yeah, like, I think that would be my approach. Like, I think some of the animated films do this really well, where they ratchet up tension to, like, the 10th degree. Mm-hmm. Of course, they don't go there, where, like I said, like...
You said the Batman animated movies?
There's a couple of Batman animated movies that are really dark.
I've never seen them.
Yeah, some
I used to watch, like, the what is it, Batman Beyond? Like, I think I saw that, like, with, like, the younger...
there are some rated R animated films.
I've heard.
Yeah,
never
like,
seen them.
That's where I want this to go. Like...
Yeah.
Especially with the guy they cast as the Joker. You know who it is, right?
You know, the Barry... I can't pronounce his last name. Like
Keegan.
Yeah, okay.
He was in The Green Knight.
Yep,
and
I saw that.
His 5 minutes of screen time in The Green Knight is so fucking terrifying. Like, that dude, they nailed the casting. I'm not saying he's going to kill it, but that is an inspired casting. So, like, dude, just go there. He's already, like, that kind of actor. Like, just lean into the horror.
If we're speaking of him, and I know you like A24, so I can't help myself. I got to bring it up. Did you see The Killing of a Sacred Deer?
Yes.
He disturbed me in that movie.
That's what I'm saying. So lean into that.
I know he can do it.
Lean into it. Like, let him eat a bowl of spaghetti creepy as fuck. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, him as Joker, I'm down. I'm ready for this shit. And I hope that Matt Reeves... Please take off the handcuffs if you had them on him, DC. But, like, just let him do his shit. Like, we've already done everything else. Just go there. Like...
Yeah, be bold.
Yeah, be bold. You're talking about a character who was an absolute sociopath. Just lean in. Like, lean in and go there and don't pull your punches. Like this film where they're talking about Bruce Wayne's parents and they're like, oh, my dad is a piece of shit. He was in. And then they pulled their punch later saying, with Alfred going, and I guess they needed Alfred to be a stand-up guy. So they needed Alfred to have that moment where it's like, no, he had to do it because your mom, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, fucking lean in, dude. Like, you brought it up, meaning the film brought it up. Like, why bring it up if you're not going to go there? Go there. Like, it's okay if Bruce Wayne's parents were evil. Like, I'm cool with that, and that's part of the tension with it within his own character arc. Like, now he has to combat that as well. That family history that the Riddler brought up. Like, hey, your parents are in on this shit just like everyone else, and who are you? You're not better than anyone. So, like, lean in. Like, let the Joker just go there.
I even think for a movie like this, because I saw it with my wife, and she had never seen Batman before. No joke. Never seen it.
Wow.
I mean, she knew who Batman was. She never saw it. And I definitely feel for a movie like this that it is acknowledging the lore. It sort of is assuming that you're probably decently versed in
Rightfully
Batman.
so.
Right, rightfully so, because we've had so many years of movies before with, like, starting in, like, the late 80s with Tim Burton's first Batman movie. So, the point being with that is that if we already have done so many movies, and like you said, there's only so much territory that you can go, I do think there's enough of a population of Batman fans that they can stand the rated R. They can stand you doing something that's not going to necessarily maybe like be the PG-13 thing that's going to be the most marketing friendly picture, but something that is going to please the people that have been following the franchise forever. One of the successes you could say with comic books on that is Deadpool. I don't really like Deadpool that much myself. Ryan Reynolds just plays himself to me a lot.
Yeah, he does. No, he is an asshole. Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
With Batman, I'm like, you got enough of a fan base that like you can take the chance.
Dude.
You can do it.
The whole thing with the Joker and the laughing gas, and just have people's faces literally melting off from laughter. Like,
Yeah.
I want to go there. I'm ready. We need it. Like, it's been this many years. Let's do something different.
Something that reminds me of, and I don't know why I keep bringing up Star Wars a couple of times in this, but for like myself, like I'm not like a diehard Star Wars fan, but the only reason I'm bringing it up is because they have like this like great lore around like the Sith and everything like that, and I know like the fan man like make like a messed up evil Sith movie where like they don't even focus on the Jedi. I just want to see these evil bastards. Like,
Yeah, show me why the Jedis hate them so much.
Yeah, but they won't do it.
Well, they kind of... Okay, it's another thing where they have to pull their punches because they need that PG-13-ish rating.
About the money.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
the fact that Skywalker, like, Anakin,
Yeah.
walks in off screen and kills a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Like, that is fucked up. Like, if you just lean in... Don't pull your punches. Don't have him walk in and walk back out and we're supposed to make assumptions. Like,
Yeah.
and then get some dialogue about it later, like clunky as fuck. Like, just lean in, dude. Like, we're ready. We're ready.
I think I would agree. The other thing that I would ask is, you know, you had earlier talked about, you saw the movie Batman on HBO, theater experience and whatnot. Do you think that maybe because of the day and age that we're at, just with entertainment as a whole, that if, let's say, theatrical audiences weren't going to buy into the R-rated hardcore Batman, I mean, is it fine if they put out the hardcore version you're talking about on a streaming service?
Why not? Like, we already have... You know, in the same week that you release a rated R one, release one for the kids that's animated. Like, balance that shit out. Like, I'm cool with that. But, like, we deserve it. We've already, like... Everyone who grew up with Batman... And I'm like the appropriate age for this because like I was alive when the Burton films came out. Like I remember them vividly. So like at this point, like come on, man, do one for me. Just do one for me. That's all I'm asking.
I agree, and I would absolutely hope that someone has the balls to actually do it. That's what I would say.
And the studio lets them.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is probably the bigger problem.
That's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah. 100%.
I want to talk about Rob Pattinson and just the overall cast in this movie. Specifically him, though, because we had talked about earlier when his casting was announced, you have people like, oh, like, what? Like, what the fuck? Like, the guy from Twilight? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, do you have any thoughts on just, like, typecasting for a movie like this? Or, like,
no, actually...
typecasting in general?
This goes back to Matt... And I'm going to give Matt Reeves credit for this, but... I don't know if that's the actual case. But this goes back to the Edinburgh and Glasgow, like, using that as a setting for Gotham thing. Like, Robert Pattinson is inspired casting. Because when you hear that, 2 years ago, you're going, well, that's a weird choice. Like, he's certainly charismatic, but like, he's not like imposing. Like, he's kind of frail. Yeah. But then you see the film and you go, oh, okay. Like, he nailed it. Like, that's what we're going. And I'm not saying I love the film. I'm just talking about just that casting alone and his performance. No, I thought he nailed it. I loved it. Like, him in the bat suit and him outside of the bat suit, and like that sort of dichotomy of like frailty and imposing his will. And he's also vulnerable in the bat suit. Like, we get that one scene where the bat suit kind of like expands so he can fly down that thing.
I did like that moment.
And he just eats shit. You can
tell he doesn't say it, but yeah, he's like, I don't think I've done this move before. And yeah, like you said, totally eats shit.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I love that part. Like, there's so many like little moments in this film that I love. It doesn't work as a whole. Yeah. But again, like the Pattinson thing, Zoe Kravitz, another inspired choice. Colin Farrell, another inspired choice. Paul Dano, I can see the choice.
Yeah.
I think Paul Dano didn't quite nail it. I think the less talking he did, the better he was in this film. Especially when they bust him at the restaurant. Like, the fact that he says nothing kind of worked for me.
Yeah, and even like when that happened, that was one of those like biggest like 7 moments where I'm like, wow, shit, it's Kevin Spacey all over again. Like, what are we doing?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes. No.
What's in the box?
What's in the fucking box? So, I mean, it's a good movie. It is a good movie.
No, yeah.
But the comparisons can't help but be made.
Yeah.
No, I kind of have like opinions when it comes to this like typecasting, because I talk to a lot of different people about this movie, and I won't say that I know a ton of people that can get into a movie as much as you can, which I do appreciate, by the way.
Thank you.
But like some people, when I mentioned like the movie, they're like, yeah, the guy from Twilight. I kept hearing that, and it just makes me think, it's like, how does someone get like stuck in typecasting, and like, is that really a thing? I mean, clearly it is to a certain degree of the audience, but I don't know, for me, and I'm somebody that likes film, so I might be biased, the guy's more than done his merits in his career since Twilight.
Well, since Twilight, I think why people still associate him with Twilight until now, which is probably smart on his choice to return to a bigger IP so he can like change perceptions a little bit. But like, he's made so many smart choices since the Twilight, and he is a phenomenal actor. I'm sorry, he is. What
are some of the movies that you like with him?
Oh, The Lighthouse. Like, that performance is insane. Like, what's the other one where he's in the car? Cosmopolitan or something like this?
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. But yes.
Again, like, incredible stuff. Like, the dude can carry a movie on his own. Period. He just can. And like, at this point, the only reason people don't realize that is because we're talking about a lot of indie filmmakers and a lot of indie films where nobody saw them other than film nerds. Like, every film nerd loves The Lighthouse because it fucking kills. But like, if you're just a normal, like, run-of-the-mill film viewer, of course you haven't seen it, because you're only going to go to the movies once, twice a year. You're going to go see big IP stuff. I get that. Like, but if you do get a chance, or you have some time to do something other than look at TikTok, like, go check out Robert Pattinson's work, like, over the last decade. That wasn't Batman and wasn't Twilight. Like, the dude is killing it. Actually, everyone from Twilight, sorry, that's hyperbole. But Stewart and Pattinson both have made interesting, smart, thoughtful choices with what projects they're a part of. And they're both incredible actors. And you can say they're two of the top actors in their generation coming through. Yeah. I think.
They're very good. No, I mean, I think they're very good. I would say for myself, for Rob Pattinson movies, Good Time, very much like Good Time. Very much like The Lighthouse. That's the most recent one that I've seen with him.
That's the one that just stands out.
I do own it as well. So I'm sorry to keep saying I own it, but I'm a big advocate for physical media over streaming. Same. I continue to collect. But No, I mean the guy's more than proved himself. He did the High Life movie. That was another A24 movie with the guy from Outcast. That was pretty good, interesting.
Yep.
There's a movie he did with Guy Pearce. It's like a apocalyptic Western movie. Haven't seen it, but I heard.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I can't think of the name.
The Rover, maybe.
That's a. Oh,
Yeah,
you're right.
Yes. Yeah.
He's done a lot of interesting choices, but I do agree for like his career. I don't know. I mean, I feel like most artists eventually will do like that wide appeal movie because they want to.
Oh, they need to make a living. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's their job.
You
So,
can't
like,
just like be like a. I don't want to say you can't be like a true artist. That's such bullshit. But
yeah. Well,
you gotta
it's
make money.
it's that whole one for me, one for you thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to. It would be like as if you worked at Walmart and you decided only to show up on days when you felt like it. That's not how it works. Like,
No.
you're an actor. Like, it's
Give and
your
take.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, sometimes you have to do one for the agent. You have to do one for the studio. Like, you need to make some money. You need to generate some profits. Like, that's the reality no one wants to talk about in film. Like, in order to sustain and in order to make smaller, more interesting, quote unquote, artful films, which is a subjective thing, like, we do have to do these things that are mass appeal, wide viewing, because not everyone cares about the medium as an art form. Like, some people just want their popcorn entertainment, and that's fine. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So, like, and I like that shit too. I like everything. I don't care.
Yeah,
like, as
same.
long as it's executed well, that's all I care about. And as long as the world that you have created for me is like cohesive, which is one of my problems with this movie. It's a little, yeah, we know. We've already went down it. But like, you know, like, just give me anything. Like, I will follow you down a rabbit hole. Just execute it. That's it.
Yep. No, I think that's very well said. I'm kind of the same way. I like to think when it comes to my thoughts on movies, I will watch the smallest little weird independent movie, like from made for $3, and I will watch the Avengers. I don't care.
Yeah.
'Cause as you said, I mean, like if the story's gonna grab me and it makes me feel something, or I am invested in the characters and the world, like, fuck it, you got my money. Like, we're good.
That's all I want.
It would, but I want to go back to what you said too about just like studios taking a chance on some of these larger IPs and like doing something more bold with them, because it's like, come on, you already got the fan base built in, like, do it. But I digress a little bit. So,
but like, I mean, I think the studio allowed Nolan to do that.
they did.
In retrospect, it feels like, oh, well, they just did the big IP thing, but that's in retrospect. At the time, let's go back to when they cast Heath Ledger and everyone in the world was like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
the
guy
10
from
things.
Brokeback Mountain guy.
Yeah, the guy from Brokeback
Yeah.
Mountain and the guy from 10 Things I Hate About You. That is not inspired casting. What the fuck are we doing? And we got the best Joker performance of all time and will probably remain that way for a while.
Yeah.
So, like, don't judge a book by its cover. Like, just because an actor is working and he gets cast by his agent in a rom-com doesn't mean he doesn't have talent. It's like Matthew McConaughey. That dude was doing rom-coms and eating ramen for 10 years. I don't mean literally eating ramen. I just mean, like...
Well, we know he was playing the bongos.
Yeah.
He was having a good time.
The dude, speaking of which, he married Brazilian, so he's just smarter than everyone else anyways.
He did.
But,
Respect.
but we're biased. But like, dude, like, Matthew McConaughey is a good actor. Like, just
Yeah.
sometimes they got to work through some shit. They got to do one for the studio. They got to do one for the agent. Whatever, to make some money so they can do some shit that they actually want to do.
So quick plug for McConaughey. I am a fan of the person, so I gotta plug him. Did you read his book,
Green Light? Yeah, I read
Did
it.
you listen to the audiobook?
No, I read it.
I've heard the audiobook's phenomenal because,
Yeah.
of course, he gives his distinct personality to it.
All right.
But I have the book. It's in the other room over there.
Yeah.
But I actually just today ordered the journal that he made along with it, so that you can like.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he has a journal, and like he has like excerpts, I can never say that, from the book, and you're supposed to like pair it along with your own thoughts, and like he sort of guides you through a journaling experience with Matthew McConaughey. I don't know. I bought it.
Sounds
so.
pretentious, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean a little bit, but I don't know. Like it's Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah,
that guy. He's.
I like him.
I like him a lot too, and I'm really glad that he got out of the rom-com phase.
And no one can sell a Lincoln like that motherfucker.
That's true.
I never cared about Lincoln until I see a Lincoln commercial.
Did you see him in The Lincoln Lawyer?
No, I haven't never seen it, but I know what you're talking about. The Gresham novel.
Yeah, they have a Netflix series coming out with it soon with, forgive me, some actor that I don't know. I don't really care, quite frankly. I'm like, McConaughey kind of did it for me for that movie, but it's nice to hear somebody give some love for McConaughey. Interstellar's a great movie too, but that's another podcast, which I'm sure I'm recorded on. All right, one thing I wanted to talk to you about as well is the use of voiceover in movies.
Ooh,
because
big topic for me.
Well, because at the beginning of this, you know, I think it opens up and he's like, Gotham, I've been working here for a while. The crime is really bad.
The night shift sucks.
He's doing that whole thing, and voiceover for me can really work. It can sometimes, but I'm curious from you, as someone that pays attention to these things more.
It's something I never do in my screenplays. I hate voiceover.
So you hate it?
I hate it outright because I think it's lazy. Because it goes back to the whole show don't tell thing. And all you're doing with voiceover is cutting out the hard work and just telling us what's going on. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, and all the stuff that he's saying in this movie, we already saw. Yeah. We got it, dude. Like, so what are you doing? It was so clunky and cringe, to borrow a phrase from the younger audience. Like, it didn't work for me. I don't like voiceover. I generally really despise it, and
really
I find it lazy, like for writers to do it.
Okay, so I gotta ask, because I don't think voiceover is the same way.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it's fine. But this is good. So one of the greatest filmmakers, in my opinion, is Martin Scorsese. Uh-huh. I mean, this guy gets talked about a lot. It's no secret amongst the film community. He's used voiceovers quite a bit in his movies. Uh-huh. I guess let me ask this, because I understand what you're saying, where it's like it can be lazy, where you're not really letting the audience interpret what the character's thinking by them just being like, I'm thinking exactly this right now.
Yeah.
Do you ever think that just don't use it at all, or maybe if it's used smartly in a certain way, maybe you could do it, or you still just are just let the audience kind of hone in on it?
Here's what I'll say. I'm not saying that 100% of the time it's ineffective or clunky.
Yeah.
Because, for example, Tarantino, his dialogue is very distinct.
True.
Everyone knows Tarantino for the way he writes dialogue. The problem with that, not the problem for Tarantino, the problem for people aping Tarantino or wanting to be Tarantino is that you don't have this skill. So when you do it, it's clunky and it's, just again, cringe. Yeah. So just don't do it unless you have this skill.
But how do you know you have the skill?
Well, I mean, that's part of the art world, right? You take you take chances, and sometimes you're just not good at certain things, and you figure it out. And hopefully, if you're a good director, you go, "Oh shit, I'm not good at that. I'm not going to do that again." So when you bring up Scorsese selling me voiceover, I go, "Okay, yeah, but that's Scorsese, dude."
Right.
So we're talking about one of the best filmmakers in the last 50 years. Without a doubt, it's not even really subjective to say that Scorsese is one of the top filmmakers. We're talking about an art form that everyone wants to participate in now. And the fact that you could say Scorsese is one of the best means it would be like if you brought up Lionel Messi as one of the greatest football players of all time. We're talking about that level of filmmaking when you bring up Scorsese. So Messi will nutmeg people on the pitch once every 10 times he touches the ball. It doesn't mean the next player should try to do that, because you're going to get embarrassed. Right. So Scorsese is a good example of it working, but a rare example, because that dude just executes everything top level. So but I can bring up 20,000 examples of it not working.
Yeah.
The Batman is one.
So let me ask you this, because we're talking more, I'd say, on the filmmaking side of things. It's interesting you talking about like a director sort of honing their instincts and figuring out what they're good at versus what they're not good at. Some of this stuff can only be figured out by trial by error. I mean, it's just life.
Yeah, that's life.
But I wonder, from people that are trying to sort of figure out where their voice is at and like where their natural, their natural skill sets are at, like what do you do to sort of figure that out other than just I start to trust my instinct through when I think I'm doing things right?
Well, what I would hope, and this is the case for me as an independent filmmaker, like start small, like work with local talent that okay, I made a short recently and I didn't have the best talent in the world to work with when it came to actors, right? I had to use what I had, and I had to figure out through that process, like, how can I sell this quiet short story I'm telling and get the most out of the acting talent I have? And you just learn on the go. And ideally, filmmakers will get that time to make small shoestring budget films with their friends and people that they know to figure out what it is that they're good at and what it is that they execute well, and work on the stuff that they're not executing well. Because film requires, it's an art form that requires all art forms. So music is involved, score is involved. Mise en scène is just, composition, and composition comes from where? Painting. So like we've learned all this stuff over time, these different art forms, and you're combining them into one thing. Like not everyone is going to execute every level of that well. Tarantino is famously mentioned for saying, like, I don't know how to do that, but I know a guy who knows how to do that, and I'm going to tell him what's in my head so he can execute it well. And that's easy if you're Tarantino. Yeah. But when you're someone like me, I have to do everything. I light my sets, I shoot, I edit, I do sound, like I do everything. And that's how it should be. When you're starting out, do every single part around the camera that goes into the film, so you understand, even if you're not amazing at executing sound design, you at least understand it.
Yeah.
So that way you can communicate with your team around you, like, hey, the sound guy, like, I want you to do this, but like on the level that you do it at, not the level I do it at. Like, I know you're going to kill it. Like, but that's the kind of stuff you can afford to do when you're at a studio.
Yeah. But like you said, you got to start somewhere, and you have to get exposed to the different aspects of film. And I'm so glad that you said that it's just basically the marrying of 1,000 different things at once.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes the average audience member, not to sound too snobbish, but they forget. There's cinematography, there's production design, there's casting, there's writing, there's directing, there's lighting, there's shit. There's
sound is the most important. Sound for me is like one of the most important things. Have you ever seen a movie that was shot well but the sound was bad? It drives you up the wall. Like it's almost unwatchable, even though it's not the thing that's going through your eyeballs.
An example of a movie that you would say falls under that?
Ooh.
I'm sure I can think of a couple.
Yeah, that film director from Chicago, what's his name? I am so sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
We had that phase we went through in the early 2000s called mumblecore.
Mumblecore?
It was called mumblecore. It was a genre of filmmaking where like there's not a lot of talking, there's not a lot of stuff going on. Actually, there's nothing going on. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was a very, very brief moment in film history. And it's a genre of filmmaking that was started by this guy in Chicago. He's in a film called You're Next.
You're Next.
He didn't make You're Next, but he's in it.
Okay. I can't say I know that. But...
No. His name is not coming to my head. But anyways, like they were like purposely, or because they didn't have the budget, shooting things poorly. So like when you watch those movies, like what kills it a lot of time is not the aesthetics of the screen, what's on the screen. It's the sound design. Like it's just not executed well, and it takes you out of the movie all the time. So I can't think of a movie like right off the top of my head where the sound design was really poor, but I think everyone knows what I'm talking about.
I would think so, and it's not to mistake either. Like if you're in a theater that has a crappy sound setup, it's not the same. You're talking about from like the actual filmmaking.
The
level
filmmaking,
where,
like where to put the microphones. Yeah. And like making sure that there's clarity in the sound pickup and the recording, like,
Yep.
and that it's edited into the film well is also, which is another whole other complication.
No, but I'm so glad to have you on here because you're able to clarify some of these things that not everybody else is able to do, which is great. Because anytime I see like a really good movie, I mean, I don't know. I really hope I never reach the age where I don't appreciate it because I see like a miracle anytime I see one that's like, wow, that was great. You think of all the different levels that had to marinate and just fucking mesh together to get it just right. It's like a freak thing every time it happens. I never.
Well, it is kind of a mistake. Like,
yeah,
everyone's intending. No one sets out to make a bad movie. That's not a thing. Like, people are trying to execute something well. The problem is that it's extremely difficult. So, like, even my short, like, there's some parts where I didn't record the sound particularly well. Like, and it bothers me every time I rewatch it. Like, and I can't do anything about it. It exists now. It's in the ether. Yeah. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's, again, going back to the Batman. Like, even though it didn't work for me completely, like, it is a miracle that they made something this good. You know what I mean? Like, to put all those pieces of a puzzle together to make one cohesive thing, whether I think it's perfectly cohesive or not, dude, it's still kind of a small miracle. Like, every time this happens. And I understand that they have a huge budget, but lots of people have had huge budgets and, like, completely bombed. Yeah. So, like, anytime something like this Batman, didn't execute at 100% efficiency, it's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I still had a good time. As I said at the beginning, like, the 3 hours I wasn't looking at my clock or my watch and going, oh, fuck, when is this going to be over? Like, you know what I mean? That's not what happened. I enjoyed the ride.
Yeah.
It's just, we do what we do. Like, as critics, or like, if you want to be a filmmaker, you kind of have to look at something with a critical eye to understand what you need to do when you make a movie, and like, oh, don't do that. Oh, don't do that. Like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, they're executing, even if they're executing at 90% efficiency, that's a small miracle.
Yeah. Do you ever, like, when you're talking about, like, how you've made a short and you've had sound design that you wish could be better, where it's like, ah, shit, I watched this back and I'm just like, God damn, I can't believe that this happened.
Yeah.
It does make me think that, and I am tying this back into the Batman. Disillusionment and how that can be a problem, like, going forward when you're trying to make something because you're focusing on previous errors or things like that. I noticed with the Batman that he's not really fully convinced by his crime fighting. Like, he's just like, well, like, I'm beating the shit out of criminals and like this is good. But, I don't really know if I'm accomplishing anything. And of course, towards the latter half of the film, he's like, well, I need to lead people into the light, literally with a metaphorical flare through the water. I'm like, okay.
I appreciated that. It's
nice.
It's fine. It's fine.
Good. It's good.
It was a good motif.
But I am curious just on the subject when you think of like disillusionment and whatnot. I mean, I relate to the feeling. I've certainly had my hangups professionally and personally where I kind of lose sight of something because I'm focusing on the wrong thing. And I just have to imagine in the filmmaking world that is something that happens all too often because artists, just to me by nature, they're very hyper aware of the things that they're creating. They might not seem it, but believe me, they pay attention.
And we're a little neurotic.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Just a little.
Yeah. So, I mean, like for yourself, I mean, like, you're trying to get better at the sound design stuff. I mean, like, what do you do to not get hung up on that stuff, other than just knowing that at least I have the balls to, like, try and make it work?
Well, again, I guess it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about something that I'm doing all on my own, I have to take it scene by scene, second by second, and think about everything that's in the frame and everything behind the frame. Which is why it's not easy, right? Because if it was easy, everyone would do it. But, like, it's not easy, and you have to be, like, vigilant and pay attention to every aspect. And before you hit record, and you don't know what your actors are going to do, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like they're in their own headspace, like trying to figure out their own like line reads. Like, so that shit is unpredictable. And you can't control them. So like you're worried about where your lighting source is coming from. Not only where your light source is coming from, literally, but within the mise en scène of the shot, is it coming from somewhere practical to the audience? So there's so many levels to this, right? Like that's why we have practical lights in scenes that actually aren't the light source for what's lighting the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, again, with the sound design, where are you going to put the microphone where one, it's not in the shot,
Right.
and two, it's picking up sound properly and not picking up peripheral sound that you don't want in your scene, which for me was my stupid freaking Prius, which is old. And the guy was running the car while we're shooting this scene, and it's making this whiny sound because every time the Prius needs to charge, it'll kick in and start going like, oh my God, it's a nightmare. Like I live through this every day. So yeah, like there's just all these things, and you also need to just be comfortable with failing.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna make mistakes, or there's gonna be things that happen while you're filming that you cannot control. And which is why I'm saying the Batman executing at 90% efficiency is a small miracle, because there's so many things that can go wrong, especially when you're filming in downtown Edinburgh or Glasgow. Like you don't control the city. You know what I mean? You don't control the sunlight and when clouds go over a sun or don't go over the sun, when there's overcast, not overcast, like, and then the shooting days are the shooting days. They're budgeted. There's just so many things that you cannot control.
Yeah. I think that's actually something I might admire maybe about people that do the filmmaking and whatnot, is that, you know, there's all these variables, and like you might try to like have like this hyper attention focus to detail, and most of it's for the best, but the ones I think that really execute it well, they have confidence in their voice, but then they're able to just be like, yeah, like, well, you know, that fucked up over there, or like that was bad over there, but they don't derail, you know, it doesn't derail them.
I think some of the most brilliant filmmakers are the ones that are not rigid, like that will go with the flow and be like, you know what, I had it written like this, but because this happened, we're going to take a left turn here, and we're going to, and then they think like this fast to make a change. Like, you know what I mean? And a change that makes the film better than it would have been otherwise. Because
It's true.
There's a artist, Annie Clark. She has the band St. Vincent.
St. Vincent? Is that what it's called?
Her band is called St. Vincent, and I think she's one of the most brilliant musicians right now. But one of the things she does to herself is she gives herself constraints. Okay, I'm going to make this record. Here are my 10 constraints. I'm not allowed to go outside this box. She makes a box for herself that she has to work through. So, and I think as filmmakers, we do the same thing, right? Like we're going to have these 10 constraints, or any number, it's innocuous, but like just these constraints, I'm going to work within them, and I'm going to be flexible and mindful and thoughtful about my approach within those constraints.
Damn. That's some deep shit. I mean, no.
We're a little bit high. No, I'm just kidding.
No. So kind of continuing from that, you know, one thing I talked about the scene, which we appreciate, of like Batman's like, I can't just beat the shit out of criminals, I have to lead them through the light. I mean, I like this. It's good. I'm making light of it, but it's a good. That was fine. That was a good character arc. Batman's figuring out he's got to be more of a symbol and and all that kind of mumbo jumbo. But I am curious for like yourself, if you're realizing maybe something where you're like, well, this didn't go the way I planned, maybe change the way that I view things, kind of like alter my outlook and things like that. Like, do you have, like, I guess, a very straightforward way of doing that? Or, I mean, you just kind of recognize when, you know, I can change this a little bit, and it might be for the better for my own career. Like,
no, it happened in my, wait, for my career? Like, you mean like when I'm on set?
You can do both.
No, I think that staying flexible is actually just a key to life in general. Yeah. But like, I would like to think that I would not be so rigid as to think I have all the answers when I show up to set. And that the other people around me, the other talent around me, because you cannot make a film on your own. It cannot be done.
100% a collaborative.
Yeah. So you need to be flexible and you need to listen to the people around you because you don't have all the answers. And it is fucking arrogant to think that you do.
Yeah.
I think some of the worst filmmakers are the ones that do think they have all the answers and aren't listening to people around them. You know, we brought up Scorsese earlier. I do think he's one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, but what we've seen with him recently is people are scared to tell that guy anything. So like his movies are like 3.5 hours long now, and they don't need to be. What movie needs to be 3.5 fucking hours long? Like, you know what I mean? So like somebody along the way, not somebody, everyone along the way decided Scorsese is so brilliant, he doesn't need to be told no. And that's not great.
That's a super interesting thing, and that's one that we could talk about for a long time. But I will say, maybe just something for the audience to think about that's listening to this is, you know, finding that like striking that balance where like, okay, I've paid my dues, I've learned like kind of the trades, I've sort of shadowed a little bit on all the, you know, different aspects, and I'm now getting more money from the studios. People are trusting me. That has got to be a dangerous thing. For the real artists, where they're just like,
it is.
Shit. Everybody's just a yes man. Like, yeah, man, like you're great.
And now you have
you
all the money.
That I love.
There's all the money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's going back to the constraints. Yeah. Like, the best artists in the world, like when you listen to them talk about their process, they talk about constraints a lot. If you pay attention, you'll hear it. So constraints are very important. Budget constraints are important. Limitless budget is not a good thing. So learning, and one of the things I appreciated in this film is I didn't think there was a ton of green screen. I felt like there were a lot of tactile, like lived in shots.
I did appreciate that.
And thank God, you know, like let's go back to before everything was CG. It doesn't look good. Like, and it never holds up. If you watch it 10 years from now, it's going to look like garbage because the technology will be better. So just stop it, man. Like, let's give ourselves some constraints and let's work within them. Yeah. And like, that's where the art comes out.
I feel like that's true because a lot of times, like there's okay, so I might not be making the greatest comparison here, but I'm going to try. So Michael Bay, okay. yeah, I promise. I'm gonna have a point here.
Yeah.
So Michael Bay, he's had some real big budget movies with his Transformers movies. Regardless of your opinion of them, a lot of them suck. I'll just say what I feel about that. But yet you can take someone like him and then give him a movie like 13 Hours, or I've heard this new Ambulance movie that he did is actually not half bad for his energy and whatnot. It's a modest budget action movie and not something that's got 200 million behind it. He can find a way to fit in there. And I do think that, yeah, like if you kind of give like a director like, hi, here's the blank checkbook and, you know, you've made us a couple hits, just freaking go wacko and have no restraints on you. Sometimes it might work, but I think it's rare.
Yeah.
I think it's rare. But anyways, I was bringing up Michael Bay because I thought he's maybe one of the filmmakers that has time to time shown that he can do a pleasing action movie without being bloated over stuffed explosion Michael Bay that people make fun of him for. I don't know if any of that makes sense. It's not really all tied to the Batman, but you know, I digress a little bit.
Hey, can we pause real quick?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're good.
Now.
He's back from the bathroom. It's a little too much information, but whatever. All right, you had a thought.
Yeah. So you brought up Michael Bay.
I did.
And one of the things I wanted to give Matt Reeves credit on is in opposition to Michael Bay's chaos cinema. So what I mean by that is when Michael Bay, the problem I have with Michael Bay, among many things, but one of the main problems I have with Michael Bay is his chaos cinema when he's shooting action scenes and you don't understand where you are spatially within the scene. So I'm not saying something new. Like,
No.
it's pretty. Everyone understands like this is a problem.
Yep.
One of the things that Matt Reeves I thought accomplished well was even with the car chase, which I didn't love because I thought it was kind of boring. But I understood where we were spatially through the whole film. I can't remember a single scene, and maybe there is one or two, but I don't remember any in a fight scene, an action scene, the car chase that I don't love, like where I didn't understand where the characters were spatially to each other and where we were in frame.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Commendable. Like,
It's true.
especially Nolan's not great at that either. Like he's better than Michael Bay by a long shot, but like I thought Matt Reeves did a commendable job with like spatial recognition and where we were in the scene.
Yeah.
And where the characters were in the scene in relationship to each other. Like,
I think it speaks a lot to a filmmaker's talents, regardless of how much artistic merit they might bring to the picture, is, like you said, just like, I can watch this and I'm not seeing a bunch of choppy cuts and bad edits. One of the scenes I go back to where, if you want to, like, for any film people out there that are listening, if you want to go and watch a shit show of a scene that's edited, watch Taken 3. There's a scene where Liam Neeson is having to go over a fence, and I think there's like 20 different cuts of him like just like leaping over this fence.
No.
It's bad.
I haven't seen it, so
It's really bad.
yikes.
I don't expect everybody to pick up on that, but I do think most people can appreciate where, you see like a movie like John Wick, and one of the reasons people appreciate that is because they're like, well, I'm seeing everything in camera. I'm not seeing a lot of different angles of the same shot. It's like, no, like people have choreographed this to death and they have rehearsed it a lot. Different movie, of course, but yeah, I can definitely see Matt Reeves clearly from just a technical perspective understands, I think, how to craft that.
Yeah, and I think that's proven true throughout his filmography. Like, that was the case with Planet of the Apes. Something I appreciated, like, the action was understandable, like, comprehensive, and, like, again, Let the Right One In, which is a completely different thing.
Did you ever see the original for that?
I have.
I have not.
Yeah, I like both, actually, quite a bit.
Yeah. I like his version. That's the only one I can say I've seen. I like him overall, and I mean, I think we talked about the Apes movies for a bit, but shit, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, good movie.
Yeah.
More than Planet of the Apes, also a good movie. Not as great as Dawn, but it's still pretty good.
And now I just want him to find his voice. Like, give me, like when we talk about Wes Anderson, Edgar Wright.
I saw your post, by the way, that you're just like overrated, like pretentious, like guys. Wes Anderson.
It's complicated with Wes Anderson because he's overrated and underrated. Like,
yeah, it's weird with him.
Yeah, it's a problem for me where I go into a Wes Anderson film and I'm either gonna love it or I'm not gonna connect with it. I'm never gonna hate it, but like I'm either gonna love it or not connect with it, but that's good. At least he's taking swings, man. Yeah. Like, he has a voice. When I see a Wes Anderson film, I know it's a Wes Anderson film, and that's something to be said for. Yeah. And that's just, I can see the technical ability with Matt Reeves. He knows where to put the camera. He knows how to shoot action. He knows how to get the best performances possible out of his actors from what I've seen for the most part. So, dude, okay, we've gotten there. So let's fucking ratchet this shit up, man. Like, I want you to find your voice by the next Batman film.
I think, you know what, I feel like you're being encouraging in that thought. I mean, to me anyway, because it's like you're recognizing he's got talent.
Oh,
you
clearly.
recognize that there are a lot of positives there, and it's like you just want the guy to succeed on his own.
And it might not be his fault, right? Like we talked about.
Know.
He keeps taking on IP, and that's great. Like, I'm glad. Like, his wife probably loves the fact that he brings home a fat fucking paycheck. Like, you know what I mean? But let's... Dude, come on, man. Like, the next movie, just give me you. I don't want I don't want Batman as Fincher. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't hate it 100%, but, like, I don't want to think about other movies when I'm watching your movie.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. When you watch a Wes Anderson film, I'm sorry, I keep bringing him up.
It's fine.
When you watch a Wes Anderson film, you don't think about any other filmmaker than what he's presenting you with. because Wes Anderson is fucking Wes Anderson. He is an auteur. Whether you like his stuff or not, he has a vision and it's clear like what his vision is. That is the sign of a true artist. Whether you like their art or not is a different conversation.
Yeah.
But I think it's inarguable that he is an artist. Like, to create mise en scène that is wholly yours, no one can take that away from you. So, like, whether it works again from movie to movie, but who cares?
Right. That's not the point.
Yeah. So with Tarantino, Wes Anderson, like, we're starting to get like these directors who have their own, like, their own composition and mise en scène that stands out from everyone else, and that in a world where half the population wants to be a filmmaker now, like that, dude, it's hard to do. So I just want to see Matt Reeves do it. Like, I know that he can.
Yeah.
And I just want, just take the handcuffs off. Whatever's going on, I don't know. But, like, the next one.
So let me ask you this, because you talked about him taking over existing IP. We've mentioned it a couple of times. But I wonder, maybe the comparison's not there. It doesn't need to be compared. But I think of like a J.J. Abrams in a way, because that's another man that did some IP work. And, I mean, sure, he's done things like just on his own. I mean, he made Super 8, I guess. I don't know if that was solely, I mean, Spielberg influenced for sure. But I guess, like, I wonder, like, if, like, you ever do see somebody where, I'm not saying it's Matt Reeves, but you see somebody that has some talent behind the camera, but you still kind of are doubtful that, well, just because they have some technical, you know, brilliance behind them, do they really have a voice? Do they really have something they can lend?
You brought up the perfect person.
Yeah.
I love, for years, I was like doing what I'm doing with Matt Reeves now.
Yeah.
For years, I was doing that with J.J. Abrams. Like, this dude has talent. I just need to see him. I can't see him. I see Spielberg. So, and now it's gone so long with his career that I think the secret is that he doesn't have one. And that he's really just Spielberg. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I think the cat's out of the bag. Like, he's not going to give us something new at this point. Like, he's in his 50s. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, okay. And I hope that's not the path we're going down with Matt Reeves. If it is, it's okay. Like, I still show up to J.J. Abrams stuff. Yeah. Excited. Because I know, bare minimum, like, technical brilliance will be there. Mm-hmm. Bare minimum, which is good. That's not a bad thing.
Sure. Yeah, it sells.
Going back to sports metaphors, like, sometimes you have a player on the pitch that just does his role and he does it well. He's not Michael Jordan, but he's the guy next to Michael Jordan. I'm cool with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I hope that Matt Reeves has another level.
Yeah. No, it's refreshing to hear you just like kind of talk about it that way, because I don't know if everybody always recognizes like the art that goes into the film. I mean, I think it's easy for some people to be like, well, like, they were given a great script. Of course they know what to do. Like, they don't have to do anything, but it's like,
that's bullshit.
That's really bullshit, because, like, there has to be direction for where things go, the placement of shots, like, we could go on, but... Yeah, I guess to any Matt Reeves fans that are listening out there, I would be curious what you think about this. But I can definitely say the guy has not let me down so far for films, but I respect what you're saying, in that you're like, I see the talent. We can see that you're capable. I want to see you maybe do something that isn't something that's already been kind of created. Like, we want to see what you just kind of got from scratch, which is bold. I mean, it's bold for anybody to do, for sure. But... one more thing I want to talk about. So we talked about a lot of film things. I want to talk about kind of something dumb, if I might, for a moment. Vigilantes, right? Oh. Batman.
Yeah.
He's fighting crime. He's just beating the shit out of people. He dresses as a caped crusader. He's afraid of bats. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you have any thoughts on vigilantes? I mean, like, are there any, like, in real life that you know about? Do they exist outside of the comic book world?
Fuck, I hope not. That's one of the problematic messages with superhero movies, right? Like,
yeah, just wear a cape and go beat the shit out of people. It solves problems.
Which has always been a motif in Batman films, where like Batman Begins, where we have the guys that dress up like Batman but they're not Batman.
Dark Knight.
That's Dark Knight.
Because
Okay.
Scarecrow's there at the opening.
Yeah.
Like, who's like, I'm not wearing hockey pants. Like, that whole thing.
Yeah. So at least in those films, and they do it in this one as well, kind of. I think they were one of the things I liked about this Matt Reeves Batman is that I think he was taking a shit on QAnon.
Okay.
Because the Riddler has like a message board and he like influences other people to take action.
Yeah, because at the end he's just like, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. And they're just like, okay, you need some guns? You need some shit? Like, we'll bring
this. Yeah. So like, I like that. I like that like, because that's a problem in our society right now. Like where people just they go down a rabbit hole and they don't come out. Or when they do come out, it's not good. Like, so, but I like the mirroring of that to Batman, where Batman is saying in this movie, I am vengeance. Yeah. And then it's returned back to him by the Riddler wannabes or
whatever you want to call
chess pieces. Yeah. Riddler's chess pieces. Like, they say, I am vengeance back to him. And it's like, oh, right. Like, dude, you're not the cops. You're not the police force. Even if you're working with them, you're on your own. And who are you to tell us what's what? Like, who are you to act on it? Like, you know what I mean? And who are you to point out who the bad guys are and the good guys are? That has all kind of problems. You know what I mean? And we don't know where that's going to go. No. So I kind of like that mirroring within the film. It's one of the things that work for me.
But if you saw a Batman in Iowa City or something, I mean, like, are you going to be like, yeah, he's helping out?
No.
Like, no.
I would have
probably not.
It would have the opposite effect. Like, someone call the cops, okay?
Like, this guy's talking about it. He's going to get himself killed.
Yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying, because, like, it works in the comic world, but, like, if you were to see it, like, today, you'd be like, oh, what is this jackass doing? Like, are they really going to affect change that way?
Have you seen The Boys?
The Boys? That's the Amazon series. Right?
Yeah.
Carl Urban's in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen it. I've heard it's like brutal.
It's so good.
Okay.
It's like, what if superheroes were for real? And wouldn't they be narcissistic assholes? And then it's that. So like, that's the real world. But it's a movie. Like, we separate ourselves from reality. I guess you can argue that these movies send a bad message to people with bad intentions.
Yeah, I mean that's almost another podcast in and of itself, is how much influence a person can take from a film.
I hope not.
What you talked about Tarantino earlier. He's a person that I really love how outspoken he is sometimes on people being like, well, you've used racism a lot in your movies, or there's been a lot of gun violence, and he's like, it's a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie.
I'm not making something to, like, be sending the message to reality of how you should behave. He's like, that's not what I'm doing. Like, I'm telling a story.
Well, yeah, it's like when Fox News drags Kendrick Lamar on their show to, like, lambast him for his lyrics, and it's like, dude, I didn't tell your kids to listen to my music. It's not for kids. No. Like, I'm rapping about Compton in L.A. Like, it has nothing to do with you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we live in a world where there's stuff for adults and stuff for kids. And there's stuff for the impressionable and the people who realize that it's just a piece of entertainment or art.
Yep.
Like, those things can both exist.
It's true. Final thought. We've talked a lot about Batman. We've talked about a lot of different things on here, which I do appreciate. I'll always say that. Favorite Batman movie?
Batman Returns. Tim Burton.
Okay.
I'm in the minority on that, I think.
I have a confession to make. I've never seen it.
Oh,
I've
it's
seen Batman
so worth your time.
Nicholson, and I've seen all the other ones. I've never seen that one.
I will tell you why. Okay, one part of this is because I just grew up in that era. But another part of this is, okay, we keep making the Batman movies darker and darker and darker. And what I said earlier is, okay, lean all the way in or get all the way the fuck out. Yeah. So the thing I like about Burton's Batmans are they're dark, but they're not self-serious. Mm. You can view Burton's Batman films as pure comedy. You could. They're very dark, but because it's Burton. Yeah. But there is a sense of humor about them. Like, one of the things that I was a little bit confused on with the Matt Reeves Batman is dressed in the Batman suit that you know.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same universe, the villains don't have the same conviction. Catwoman is dressed in a very muted, like something you could have made in your closet cat suit.
Sure.
Like even her ears on the hat are like very muted. The Riddler is like duct tape and whatever.
Yeah.
Why are we allowing the protagonist to dress up fully as a bat, which is fucking ridiculous? And then like,
Right.
then the villains are just more sensible than our protagonists. Like oh yeah, duct tape, and oh yeah, this beanie that kind
Good point.
of has cat ears, but not really. Like one of the things I like about the Burton films, and it just leans all the way in. And of course, it was the first one, so I guess it would do that. But like, I don't know. Maybe we go back to that, and I think we will at some point. I mean, you can only make them so dark. So, like I said, you're either going to lean all the way into the darkness where Joker is a fucking sociopath and a murdering rampage, or we're going to go back to the Burton kind of thing where it's like, it's dark, but it's funny.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a balance to be struck there.
Yeah, I think I mean, the good thing about Batman, and I think history has shown, is that it's up for interpretation. There's a lot of different takes. Tim Burton's had his stuff. Joel Schumacher's had his nipple phase.
The worst
and,
ones.
You know, is the Ice Age, and we've seen those.
You saw the Schumacher ones, but you haven't seen the Burtons?
I've seen the first one.
Oh, no.
Seen the Jack Nicholson, but I haven't.
Please
not
watch
seen-
Batman Returns.
I need to see it.
Yeah, you'll love it. Well, no, I won't say that. I won't say you'll love it because I know people that don't. Like, it's a generational thing.
True.
Yeah.
Well, I always think about that too, like when I watch a movie that like someone recommends, or it might be from an older time, because there is always like the side of it where it's like, well, I'm not seeing it when it came out. I'm not around during that time.
Yeah,
frame.
there's
So,
no
like,
context.
you're always viewing it through a different lens. But I would still, I'm always willing to give any movie a shot.
Dude, Danny
I'm very
DeVito.
open-minded.
Danny DeVito
I love him. He's great.
is the Penguin, and he's spewing like some black foul shit out of his mouth the entire fucking movie. He eats fish on set for real. Michelle Pfeiffer swallows a bird, which was not scripted.
She swallows a bird.
She swallow.
A real
Okay,
bird?
well, not swallows down her throat.
Okay.
She puts the bird in her mouth, closes her mouth, and then lets it fly out. Not
What?
scripted.
Oh, wow.
And Burton left it in. By the way, Michelle Pfeiffer is still the best Catwoman. As much as I love Zoe Kravitz, I feel like she was a little
What
bit.
about Anne Hathaway?
Yeah, nah,
Yeah.
forgettable.
Yeah.
I would say Zoe Kravitz is the second best Catwoman. There's Halle Berry, forgetful.
I thought you were about to say, like, she's the best.
No.
Whoa.
No,
Like, what?
that's a take. No, Halle Berry is probably the most forgettable, which is crazy because it's Halle Berry.
Yeah.
Not her fault. And then there's
Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, that's all right.
And then, like, but the Zoe Kravitz and Michelle Pfeiffer are the two best, with Michelle Pfeiffer definitely. I think.
I'm going to have to say, I've heard that from a few people, that she's, like, just really good.
That's another thing I wanted to bring back.
Yeah,
One of the things I liked about Matt Reeves' Batman, it brings the sexy back.
Yeah.
Nolan's Batman franchise was completely sexless.
This is very true.
Catwoman is sexy again. Like, and then maybe someone would argue that Anne Hathaway is as well, but she's just beautiful. But
I mean, she looks good in the catsuit. Like,
yeah. But like
yeah,
that movie
good.
is not.
No.
Yeah,
I know what you
it's
mean.
not sexy. But like this brought the sexy back. Like there's chemistry between her and Pattinson.
And that's always part of the. I mean, someone that's read the comics can actually speak to this, but like that's part of what makes their relationship work is that they have that very flirtatious relationship while being at odds because she's on a different side of the spectrum than Batman is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's true. I felt their vibe. I mean, I felt it as an audience member. I was like,
Wait
okay.
till you see Batman Returns. That movie is dripping with sex. Dripping with sex. Like it's amazing. Like it is a very sexy movie, especially for Tim Burton.
The only silly thing I can bring up with that is there's a YouTuber I watch. I guess I'm giving him a quick plug. You ever watch John Flickinger? or the
No.
flick pick.
No.
Anyways, he's a guy I've been following since college, but he always talks about Batman Returns, and he loves Danny DeVito during this part where he's just like, "Let me show you my flinch, my flipper trick."
It's so good.
He talks about that. We're just like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
my god, like what is he saying?
Yeah.
No, so I've heard about it referenced. I just need to actually take the time to do it, but it's tough. There's so much stuff out there, man.
Yeah.
Like movies. You talk about The Boys. I'm like, that's another series added to the list of 10 other series. Like, holy hell. Where does one find the time? But any other thoughts you got on the Batman?
No, I keep bringing them up.
No, I mean, I think we've covered things.
I'm sure I have
pretty
some,
thoroughly.
but like obviously, I thought the score was good. I brought that up.
I like my Michael Giacchino. And in general, I will just say, I mean, I don't have time to get into it on this episode, but I'm very big on music and film, and specifically composed music, not just like a good soundtrack, like good, you use the Nirvana song at the right time. Like, like the actual score for a movie. I mean, it really matters, and I love listening to him, and I thought he did a good score. I wish I could almost speak better to music because I don't want to sound like a
that
dumbass.
I cannot do as well.
Yeah,
like
because I won't even try because it's just it's gonna come off like ooh.
I can say it works.
Yes.
Yeah, it worked well. Like I loved it. Like I would listen to it outside of the context of the film.
I feel like that's a high compliment.
Yeah. 100%. Another thing I wanted to bring up is
go for it.
So I might be wrong on this, but most Batman films, the Batman symbol on the chest, one of the things I liked about this film is that he pulled it off and it was useful. It was an actual tool.
When did he pull it off? I don't even
remember
that.
There's a part where I can't remember the exact use of it, but I remember he pulled it off and used it to do something, to cut something. Shit. Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but he uses it, and that was cool. It comes off and like he uses it as a tool.
I know the only part though where like there were some like super nerds that theorized about this, but towards the end where the fake Riddlers are coming in and they're like the flood walls coming down and whatnot, he has that part where he gets basically blasted in the chest with a shotgun, and then he's like, I gotta get like the adrenaline. And some nerd out there I saw was speculating that it's like Bane's like serum to like make him like all jacked up and crazy. I don't know about that.
Well, even if that's true, we weren't presented that within the context of the film.
No, so like no one would know.
Yeah,
like if that was a thing, like it
that's a complete.
It could be up to a nerd to be like,
that's a conspiracy theory.
I really try to I try not to get into those conspiracy theories for film. It's a
Matt Reeves didn't present it, so therefore it doesn't exist to me until it does exist.
That's a good point. So it's like it's got to be like framed within the context of the story. Otherwise, like that's just pure speculation.
Yeah, speculation, like completely.
Makes sense. Yeah. I got nothing else to say on the Batman. I've said everything I wanted to say.
That's
it. I appreciate you for coming on.
Yep.
You're welcome back anytime.
Yep.
And feel free to have another beverage if you want. But that's all I got. So
awesome.
All right. Appreciate everybody for listening. If you have not done so already, this is the desperate plug. Please go ahead and hit the follow button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get the podcast at. I don't really give a shit. As long as you're listening to it, I'm happy. Follow, share with your friends. There is an Instagram account. I don't post as much as I should. It takes time. But you can follow that. It's at Screenspeak Podcast.
Is that where you do spoken poetry? The bat.
No, I do not. But if that will help grow the audience, then damn well
I think you should.
Maybe I
think you should. Limericks, spoken poetry.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.